The Guardians are taking you can never have enough pitching so seriously. It should be stitched onto their uniforms in 2025. Plus, we know who the Guardians' first Cactus League starter will be, and we have an injury report to update at the start of camp.
Tanner Bobby of the Guardians, and you're listening to Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Guardians had such little starting pitching in 2024. They're hoarding everything they can get in 2025. We'll talk about the interest in John Means today. We will talk about the Guardians' health updates from the first weekend of camp. We know who the first spring training starter was going to be. We'll talk about why that could be significant. And if time allows, we'll get into some interesting thoughts on the first weekend of Division I college baseball on today's Locked On Guardians. Before we get started, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get a $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. I'm Justin Latta. Jeff's out today dealing with a personal issue. Sorry for the late episode 2 on a Monday. Also, just dealing with some personal stuff too. But we've got some good stuff to get to today. The Guardians gave us some health updates, some good, some bad. We'll get into those and what they mean. We'll discuss whether or not Shane Bieber is closer to returning than we thought. We'll talk about Triston McKenzie and why it's significant he is getting the first spring training start. And then we'll talk about John Means at the end of today's show as well. That's not an official deal yet, but we know there is interest. Before we get started, I'm Justin Latta. I've been covering the Guardians minor league system all the way back since 2007. I started out writing for a bunch of different places and blogs. Most notably at Guardians Baseball Insider. I was the editor-in-chief for a couple of years. Currently at the News Herald and Morning Journal on a freelance basis. Also at Prospects Live and next year in Cleveland.substack.com, where you should sign up because I will be having my top prospects scouting reports and rankings coming out here very soon. Also doing a little bit of an ebook on that too. It's going to have all kinds of different stuff. I'll share more details on that as I get closer, but definitely go check it out at next year in Cleveland.substack.com if you want more stuff on the Guardians prospects. All right, so health updates to start camp. Really not a ton of surprises out of this one. Obviously, they gave us an update on Sam Hentges. We know he's out for the entire season. David Fry, they didn't really give an update on. He is just recovering that, and he is going to have a recheck pretty soon on his Tommy John. So there's no updates on that either. A couple of the ones that were interesting in there. Trevor Stephan, not really an interesting one. He was able to progress to 120 feet. Throwing 5 days a week, so it looks like he'll be getting on the mound sometime here soon. Stephen Vogt said last month they're anticipating kind of a early season return for him, maybe late April or May. They don't got to stretch him out as much, obviously. So looks like Trevor Stephan remains on track to come back early in the year. Probably will not break camp. Definitely will not break camp with the team. I think we can say that pretty significantly. He will not break camp with the team, but shouldn't be out a ton longer as long as there are no setbacks. Let's talk about the first significant one here. This is very unfortunate. Daniel Espino. Now, nothing new on Daniel Espino from this health report, honestly. I talked to James Harris back at the end of November about his progression, and they said they wouldn't really know his timeline until the beginning of spring training, and here we are, right? It's the beginning of spring training, so they kind of know what his timeline is. So he is now 11 months out of his shoulder capsule revision, so that means that is his second shoulder surgery, the second shoulder anterior capsule surgery that he's had done on that right shoulder. So he has just continued to go through rehab and throwing progression. They said back in November he was on a throwing progression. So these are all projected timelines. A lot of these things are very fluid, could change. But the plan right now to return to game activity is 16 to 18 months. So we're sitting here February 17th talking about this. Five more months from this would be, July. And 7 more months from this, we're talking about 18 months. That's 7 months away. That's more like September. Most of the minor league seasons finish up in around Labor Day. AAA goes till almost the end of September now these days. So really best case scenario for Daniel is we're talking about Arizona Complex League, like just getting on the mound, throwing bullpens, maybe getting into a game in July, maybe late July, early August. That's like best case scenario for that. On the far end of things, let's assume he continues on his progression. Maybe he gets back on the mound and throws, a couple of instructs. Like those instructs usually start in October because of the weather and in Goodyear and Arizona in general, but they've moved those up a little bit to try to be more in line with the Arizona Fall League. So that's October. So October, you could be seeing Daniel Espino maybe throwing in the complex somewhere if things are going well. I know some people ask me about Arizona Fall League. I would say that's possible if he's 100% healthy by then, if they feel like they're comfortable with him. But I wouldn't count on them pushing that. Because they're going to want to control what he's doing when he comes back. They're going to want a very controlled environment. And the difference here is, like, people are going to say, like, well, Andrew Painter came off Tommy John and he pitched in the Arizona Fall League this past year because he had missed essentially 2 seasons. And that's true, but Espino has gone through 2 major shoulder surgeries. And we look at elbows and we think, oh, Tommy John. But anymore, Tommy John is less a big deal than it is shoulders. Shoulders are worse. And this is 2 in a row for Espino, and he's missed. Espino has not pitched since April of 2022. So anything he does when he comes back, Cleveland's going to be very, very careful about with him. So assuming he gets through this rehab, this 16 to 18 month rehab situation that he's on from the second surgery, it's going to be a slow progression into games, and they're going to want to see how things react. They're going to want to take things very methodically. So I maybe it's a coin flip that he's in the Arizona Fall League doing something, and it's definitely going to be as a reliever. Let's be honest about that. He is not going to be a starter, at least initially. I've long said that, and people don't realize this. Like, well, maybe he'll come back as a reliever and he'll be really good. Being a reliever and being a starter gives you the same amount of injury risk. Let's remember that too. Being a starter, yeah, you got to stretch your body out and you got to physically recover and be ready to throw every 5 days. But as a reliever, remember, I've said this before about Tristan McKenzie. I've said about Danny Salazar in the past. As a reliever, you're expected to go at least pitch sometimes 2 days in a row. Some guys will want to pitch 3, like, the Brian Shaws and Emmanuel Clases. Obviously won't be the case with Espino if they go this route, but you've got to go out and give 100%. Like, you're going out there in a short burst of energy. Like, look at the difference in Hunter Gaddis this year, right? Hunter Gaddis, as a starter, had a very weak fastball. It was 90-92. It wasn't getting anybody out because you're preserving to pitch 5 innings or something. In the bullpen, you're letting it all fly for an inning, maybe 2 if you're really good, like a Cade Smith. And that's why you saw Hunter Gaddis throwing 95, 97 this year, because he's just letting it all go in a short burst of energy. So that still presents the same amount of risk. Just because you're not building your body up and you're not doing your routines to have your arm hold up for 5 innings every 5th day or whatever it is, there's still a lot of risk in the bullpen letting it go for an inning and throwing 15 to 20 pitches. So everyone's saying, well, he come back as a good reliever. Once the injury risk is the injury risk, you're still going out and throwing 100%. So I would say initially I would bet against Espino getting on a mound this year in terms of an affiliate. I think if that's best case scenario, if all things go well, we have no idea how things are looking in his rehab. Personally, I don't. But I would say it's a coin flip at best whether or not he gets on the mound in an Arizona Fall League game. I think if he gets on the mound at all this year, consider that a win, and then go into 2026, hope he can do anything at that point. Nick Enright was the only guy that joined this list that was not expected to be on there, so he's got a low-grade strain of his right lat, so he's not going to throw he's going to throw this week, but they're projecting a full game activity return in April, so he might miss a little bit of time, but I think he'll be good to go. I hope he's good to go because obviously we've talked about him in the past. This is the guy who's recovered from Hodgkin's lymphoma 2 years ago, and then last year he had an injury he was dealing with, kept him out most of the year, and he finally got on the 40-man roster. So obviously super disappointing, any injury that happens to Nick Enright, but it doesn't look like this will be too bad. He'll get back on the mound, and hopefully he can get to Columbus and be on a normal progression to get there. Let's talk about Shane Bieber. That's kind of the big one everyone's kind of asking about is Shane Bieber. So Shane Bieber threw a bullpen on camera. Obviously, there were some cameras out there and in Goodyear, and he threw 15 pitches, and they said he was up to about 87, 89, which is better than he expected to be. He's throwing 5 days a week. He's throwing to 120 feet. That's all pretty good. I think him being back on a bullpen is really good. I don't know if I'd say he's ahead of schedule at this point, but when he signed, he was talking about a second half return. He was talking about July after the All-Star break. I would assume that's still going to be the case. He had Tommy John last April, and I think he's going to want to go into this knowing that he's going to re-enter the free agent pool at the end of 2025 for 2026. And let's remember, too, that we're probably hurtling towards a lockout of the players in 2026. So we'll have the 2025 season. We should have the 2026 season, barring anything expected. He is going to want to go out and have the best season he can and enter that free agent market. I know he has the team option, and he could turn down, or not the team option. It's a mutual option for $16 million next year. And that's, if things don't go well this year, really, he's got all the leverage here for Bieber. And I'm not saying he doesn't want to pitch. He doesn't want to do good for this team. There's a reason he chose Cleveland, because he had better offers to go somewhere else, but he came back because he felt comfortable getting through his Tommy John here. But the fact that he's focusing on his rehab, should say that he is really looking to come back and be the best version of himself for the Guardians, but also for himself, because he can hit the free agent market again this winter and really cash in. If he has a good half season, look at Matt Boyd. Matt Boyd had, about a half season, a little under a half season, got paid. And Matt Boyd's older, doesn't have the track record Shane Bieber has, and he got a really good contract. I think if Shane Bieber goes out and has a half season of Shane Bieber that we've come to know, maybe it's, I think we can all discount 2020 because it's 2020. But I think if you get the 2019 version of Shane Bieber, which was an all-star and obviously won the All-Star Game MVP, that's a really valuable commodity on the free agent market, as we've seen Alex Cobb. We haven't mentioned Alex Cobb on the show, I don't think, ever. He got $16 million, $17 million. So I would expect Shane Bieber's team, not the Guardians, but the medical team, to make sure that he is going through progressions. And I still think we're looking at a maybe right before the All-Star break if we're lucky, but I would still count on after the All-Star break for him. Maybe late June. I think maybe, if anything, it moves up a few weeks. But remember, the timeline for him is really going to be focused on getting the best season out of him for the Guardians chances, and also for his chances in free agency. All right. We've got some George Valera news on there. I think it's very interesting. This came back a while ago too, but he was on this report. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about why it's significant Tristan McKenzie is getting the first Cactus League start. We'll talk about John Means. We might have time to talk about some college baseball if time allows at the end as well. All in the rest of this episode of Locked On Guardians. All right, we know that having a plan and having a winning strategy is important if you're trying to win the Super Bowl, the World Series, all that kind of stuff. The same goes for life insurance, and SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy. Keep your family's future secure, like Shane Bieber's trying to do, right? SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. It's one of America's leading insurance brokers with 40 years of experience. They have helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets them apart is the personal touch. Unlike other brokers, they have that offer one-size-fits-all policies. Their licensed agents actually tailor the coverage to fit your unique needs. So if you're in good health, you might qualify for same-day coverage up to $5 million with no medical exam required. It's more affordable than you might think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance quote for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedon. Go to selectquote.com/lockedon today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedon. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Thank you all for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever you get podcasts. Obviously, we are free anywhere you can get a podcast. We also have an ad-free version over on Amazon if you're a part of that. We're on YouTube, and tell a friend if you can. Let them know to sign up on here. Subscribe. We are like under 100 subscribers away. From 4,000. We'd love to get to 4K before the season starts. We're super close. If you have multiple email accounts, if you're one of those people who has multiple email accounts, I know I do, just to sign up for different things and keep your inboxes less spammy. Use those to sign up on YouTube too. You don't got to watch, but also hit the bell so you never miss an episode. That'll let you know when we have a new video posted as well. And if you're inclined, become an insider. We had chats over the weekend about the John Means rumors over on our insiders group as well. Jeff put up some college baseball data, some draft data. So we've got some data out there from some 2025 draft eligible college players, both in terms of like exit velocities, chase rate, contact rate, swing strike rate, All kinds of good stuff Jeff found out there data-wise. He put into a spreadsheet, and that's available to our insiders over on a special Google Drive only the insiders have access to. So if you want to get access to that, if you want access to chat with us about news like John Means immediately before we can record an episode, or if you want to get bonus episodes once a month, Jeff and I said we're doing a leftovers episode of topics we don't get to. We're also doing subscriber-only mailbags too. So if you want to become an insider, that is on your screen on YouTube, or it is in the episode description wherever you get your podcast. So, and sign up if you'd like to join in on that conversation as well. All right, let's get to George Valera real quick on this one. We'll move on to the Tristan McKenzie news. So, George Valera was part of the camp update for health as well. He is 19 weeks post-op right now on his right knee surgery. He's adding throwing and hitting into his progression, taking soft toss. He is going to be on the field running soon and should be taking batting practice real soon. Stephen Vogt mentioned a few weeks ago to Anthony Castro at MLB.com that the right field battle, George will be healthy out there and can compete. So it looks like even if he's not ready, by next week to be in games, at some point this spring, George Valera could join the fray for that right field competition, depending on how healthy he is. That's interesting. I think we've all soured a little bit on George Valera just because he just has not been healthy. And the top prospect shine on him has kind of also gone away over the years. The things that George Valera, Jeff and I have talked about this multiple times in the show, when he got signed was, he's got a really good looking swing and it's really rhythmic and balanced and all this stuff. The way aesthetics of a swing don't make it functional. The way a swing looks, and this probably applies to Chase DeLauter too, because a lot of people are going to say, well, Chase DeLauter's swing doesn't look very aesthetic either, and it doesn't. But the difference between his swing and George Valera's swing is that the swing that Chase DeLauter has is producing the results you expect him to produce as a first rounder. Despite all the injuries, he has played well in the field. When he's healthy, he hits. He can pull the ball, he hits for power, he gets it in the air, he gets to all of his power. George Valera, his swing looks aesthetically pleasing to some people. It has since he's gotten signed. But over the years, moving up to AAA, it has not produced the results that Chase DeLauter has when he's been on the field. Now, Valera's been a little bit healthier. Not a ton, but a little bit. But it has not produced the same results that Chase DeLauter has produced. And that's because we thought that it's kind of a groove swing. He has a problem with adjustability. He's got some holes at the top of the zone, the bottom of the zone. And his swing tends to cover the same parts of the zone, whereas Chase DeLauter, appears to be able to cover other parts of the zone a little bit better. There's more swing and miss in George Valera's game than we thought when he got signed. They talked about him being a high contact guy. He does walk, like Valera will walk. He's a little bit passive in nature. He will maybe take pitches that are borderline that he should offer at, that he should try to foul off, depending on the count. And I don't think he's ever going to hit left-handers either, which is also a question for Chase DeLauter. I don't think Valera's going to hit left-handers. So I think he's also now more of a platoon bat. The thing is, the power is still there for Valera. The power is not an issue. I think he'll still take walks. He still is not a guy who is going to chase a ton. I think he's got holes in his swing a little bit in the zone where there's going to be some in-zone swing and miss. But I think he'll stay within the strike zone for the most part. Now, we'll see how that looks against Major League pitching because there is such a gap between AAA and the majors now in pitching. But I think there's an interesting avenue here. If Cleveland wants to play service time games with Chase DeLauter, make sure he's healthy. Obviously the incentive with DeLauter being on the open day roster is the PPI, but for a guy who you're probably going to be careful with against lefties, who's got injury concerns, I doubt they would play him enough to even get into the rookie of the year conversation. So I think we can assume that Chase DeLauter likely starts in AAA. They're not beholden to Noel or Brennan. They've said as much that, it's an open competition sort of, and we want one of those guys to take it. And he mentioned Valera having a chance, at least if he's healthy. This is his last chance. He's got one option left. He doesn't have to be on the open day roster like we thought way back when. He got the extra option because of the injuries. But this, I mean, I feel like internally, and I've heard this from some people too, is that there were people who liked Will Brennan internally better than George Valera. We've talked about that on the show before. That's been a thing that's gone around the system. But this could be Valera's last chance. They've spent money on him. They've spent time on him. He obviously brought him back for a reason. Now, he might not have had a whole lot of offers out there, but he might have felt more comfortable coming back to Cleveland. So they've got some investments in him. And he's got more power than Will Brennan. He's got a good arm. He probably isn't as good a defender in right field as Will Brennan is. But there's power and patience, and this team needs two things. It needs power, it needs patience. Those are two things that are lacking. And those are two things that Will Brennan does not provide. Now, John Kensey provides power against lefties. There's a lot of chase. So there's no patience there. A George Valera, John Kensey Noel platoon would be very problematic defensively in right field if there's no Will Brennan. It would certainly provide more power. Valera provides a little more patience. So I think it's interesting. I'm going to be really curious to see how much time George Valera gets in the outfield in spring training this year. I think it's worthwhile to give him a long look. He's got the option. And look, if Chase DeLauter goes to AAA, you know, your AAA outfield, is it going to be DeLauter and Valera? Are you going to have both those guys in AAA? I don't know if I think that Valera is going to make the team out of spring training. I'd be surprised by that. I guess that would be a great sign for his health if he did. But if you just look at the AAA roster, Petey Halpin's going to go to AAA, right? Jonathan Rodriguez is there. Tyler Freeman's got an option, so he could bounce between the infield and the outfield. So we're talking about, you know, DeLauter and Valera. Who else is an outfield in Akron? There's nobody else from Akron moving up to AAA for the outfield. So it's Petey Halpin, it's Jonathan Rodriguez, it's Chase DeLauter, it's George Valera, it's Tyler Freeman maybe. Angel Martinez could go back down there and play some outfield. So, you know, it's a crowded outfield down there. Maybe it's worthwhile to see what George Valera can give you at the major league level. So keep an eye on how much playing time he gets. Keep an eye on the comments. You know, worry less about results because spring training results is, and you can't always trust what the Guardians are saying either. Like, they can say one thing and do another, as we've seen. Go by their actions. But pay attention if George Valera is in the lineup to start games, to see if he's facing major league pitching. If he's not in there at the end of games facing guys that are going to be cutting at the end of spring training, if he's in there at the start of spring training, as far as lineups against major league starters, you know, it's something to pay attention, and pay attention to the actions, not the words. All right, Triston McKenzie is going to start on Saturday, the first Cactus League game of 2025. We will talk about why that is significant. We'll also get into John Means as we wrap up this episode of Locked On Guardians. All right, the NBA season, it is going strong. The All-Star game has passed, but there's still a lot going on. There's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. On FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. Even if you missed the opening tip-off and you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, which is the most exciting part of the NBA, staying on the action. If you're looking for bigger payouts, you can combine your live bets into same-game parlays. Obviously, it is super fun to pick on things like, I don't know if you could have bet on the Cavs team winning the skills competition, but that's something I would have done because that's a lot of fun. And I know Darius Garland didn't go do too well in the three-point competition, but all those things are fun in FanDuel to bet on if you're responsible. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $100 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $100 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so Triston McKenzie is going to start on Saturday in the first spring training game of the season. Why is that significant? Why do we care about who is starting the first Cactus League game? And we really don't, because spring training is spring training, all that kind of stuff. Maybe we don't actually care who is in that game. But here's why there is some significance to this. I think that obviously we know Triston McKenzie's kind of on his last shot here. Obviously he's out of options. He has struggled most of the last 2 seasons with injuries and ineffectiveness. Last year was ineffectiveness, not injury. I think they're going to want, obviously, I think he's starting the first spring training game because they want to get him as many looks as possible. And usually the guy who pitches in the first spring training game, obviously he's not going to go a long time, right? Maybe an inning or two. That's usually what happens. But normally, the first guy who pitches in spring training, the first starter, is the guy who is furthest along in his progression, who is the most stretched out, who has got the most going on in terms of built up, right? Last year, I think Shane Bieber. No, I don't think Shane Bieber started that first game. Maybe he did. I can't remember now. Anyway, I think that it's a good plan to get the most out of him in spring training, get him the most looks, get the most eyeballs on him, and stretch him out, making him more ready for the season open. I do think he's going to get every last chance to make this rotation at this point, even though bringing Jacob Junison is obviously an interesting choice in all this. But I'm paying attention to him starting the first Cactus League game because I'm thinking that means that he is ready to go out of the gate and they're trying to see him the most they possibly can. So you've only got a limited window to see some guys in spring training, and starting pitchers got to go through a slow progression to build up. So him starting the first game gives you the most chances to get a look at him. So I think this is a good indicator of he is going to get every chance to prove he should be in the opening day rotation. Obviously, he's got to be in the opening day roster if they're going to keep him because he's out of options. But I think this suggests that they're going to give him every chance, and they're putting everything they can behind this to make sure that they get the most out of him. So keep an eye on that and see what happens over the course of spring training. All right, why are the Guardians interested in John Means? So we saw, it was the only report I've seen this so far is Chris Cotillo. I'm going to maybe pull a Jeff and butcher the name here, but Chris Cotillo is the name from Mass Live, which is in Boston. He said the Guardians were in advanced talks to sign John Means. So why are they interested in John Means? Well, let's start with knowing that John Means has not pitched a full season, I think, pre 2020. So the last time Jonathan Means had a season over 100 innings was 2021, 146. Prior to that was 155 in 2019. So this is a guy who's only made 30 starts one time in his career. He has now had 2 Tommy John surgeries in the last 18 months. He came back last season, pitched a little bit, and then re-aggravated the UCL. And he had a second Tommy John in early June of 2024. So he is out almost all of 2025. I would be surprised if he's back on a mound this year, because it's one thing like Matt Boyd came back, right, a year later after Tommy John. That was one. That was one Tommy John. This is 2. So the timeline to recover is a little bit longer on John Means, but this feels like coverage for Shane Bieber in 2025. 2026. If Shane Bieber ends up on the free agent market at the end of 2025 because he has a great season, obviously there's a hole left in that rotation, right? And John Means, when he pitched his 2 healthy seasons, or semi-healthy seasons, 31 games and 26 games in his 2 healthiest seasons, was a pretty good pitcher. 3.60 ERA in 2019, 3.62 ERA in 2021, whips below in the 1 mark. So very good results when he has been able to pitch. I don't think, obviously they're not counting on him in 2025. I'd be surprised if there was any indication here that they are hoping for something from him in 2025. This feels like a play for 2026. John Means is 31. He'll be 32 this year. I would bet on this being a 2026 insurance for anything. I've seen a lot of Baltimore fans talk about how they want him back, and he's been a really good pitcher when he's on. Obviously, he was really good there when times were not quite as good in Baltimore. This is a good pitcher, though. A guy who, in his best seasons, has not had to rely on a lot of velocity. 92 miles an hour he averaged in 2021. 2019, it was 91, and he has been effective without a lot of velocity. So I think this is a play more for 2026, and it's lightning in a bottle. Hopefully he looks good. So if there's any contract here, I'd bet on them paying for his rehab in 2025 and then hoping he is a part of the rotation in 2026. If there were something in 2025 that happened, that'd be great, maybe. And also would be a concerning sign of the options in the Guardians rotation that fell through if he had to be a contributor. They definitely need a Matt Boyd in 2024. So I would assume this is mostly 2026 based for John Means. The success rate of guys who have returned from 2 Tommy Johns is not great. There's been some good ones. You know, Daniel Espino's having the 2 shoulder surgeries, if I can speak, is also rare and not good, which, by the way, Sam Hench has also had the same surgery, so a little concern there. Shoulder surgery is even more dangerous. I think Julio Urias of the Dodgers is the only one that really came back well from that shoulder surgery. He only had 1. It's a little better than 2 Tommy John guys. We've seen guys come back from that before. Walker Buehler is a 2 Tommy John guy. Dustin May is still trying to come back from 2 Tommy Johns. Daniel Hudson has done that, but he's been a reliever for most of his career, if not all of it. Edison Volquez came back twice from Tommy John, pitched okay at the end of that. You might remember Grant Hockin, former Cleveland draft pick. Never made it to the majors. He had 2 Tommy Johns, never made it very far. Eric Sabrowski, who was on the team this past year, he has 2 Tommy Johns. Success story, also a reliever. Jack DeGroat, who was a former Guardians minor leaguer, if you're really into deep cuts, 2 Tommy Johns, he retired. Jacob deGrom on his 2nd Tommy John surgery. He's hoping to come back this year. Jameson Taillon has. Jared Parker, if you're a deep prospect cut guy, he is a 2 Tommy John survivor. Never really recovered, though. Your success stories are kind of like Joakim Soria's had it twice. Joe Nathan's had it twice. Joel Hanrahan's had it twice. All really relievers. There have not been a lot of stories of Tommy John survivors who are starters. It's a lot of relief options. So Jacob deGrom, you know, you're hoping is a good test case. Brandon Beachy, if you're really into deep ones. Mike Clevenger's had it twice. Obviously, kind of out of baseball for, you know, a lot of reasons at this point. Randy Wolf had it twice. You see he was limited as a starter. My point is, Shane McClanahan. Pay attention to Shane McClanahan. He is coming back from his 2nd Tommy John. Pay attention to Shohei Ohtani coming back from a 2nd Tommy John. I don't know the specifics of John Means' Tommy John, if he's having the brace or the ligament repair, both, whatever. We know that Ohtani had the brace, the double, so pay attention to his. But really, if you look at the list of 2 Tommy John survivors, it's a lot of relievers. You get a couple starters. Like I said, there's Walker Buehler. Jacob deGrom's hoping to come back from it. We'll see about Shohei Ohtani, but we don't really want to compare anybody to Shohei Ohtani, let alone John Means. But it's a lot of relievers. Jameson Taillon, like I said, is 1. It's a lot of relievers. So we'll see what this looks like. I don't think the odds are very high here, since it was a surgery right after he came back. But 2026 insurance, to me, this is lightning in a bottle. If he provides something of value, that's great. And if not, I hope it's low risk. Hopefully it's a minor league deal. If they do, he can go on the 60. By the way, Sam Hench went on the 60-day IL to accommodate putting Jacob Junis on the roster. So far they have not put Bieber or Stephan or Fry on the 60-day IL, but those could all be coming soon. All right. Hope you enjoyed the medical updates. Most of them were pretty good in terms of nothing unexpected. Nick Enright obviously joined the fray there, but the rest of the medical updates, nothing was unexpected there. So I'm going to take that as good news. Things can always change. The Tristan McKenzie thing, obviously very interesting. We'll see how he looks in his first start. We'll see what they talk about in terms of him making that first start. And then we'll keep an eye on what happens with John Means. If we hear anything, we'll text you if you are an insider. If not, sign up to do that. I know the Guardians are doing some media availability as we speak. So I'm going to hop over on that Zoom now and take a look at that. And I'll report back to you on that on Tuesday. Also got some special guests this week. I anticipate we won't have Jeff most of the week, if at all. But I do have a couple of guests lined up to join the show this week. It'll be mostly me solo, but we should have 1 or 2 guests coming on this week. So hope you look forward to that. And we'll be back with you on Tuesday with a new episode of Locked on Guardians. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you are downloading daily, subscribing. All that stuff really helps us out. We appreciate that. And leave a review if you can on Apple Podcast or wherever you can leave reviews. Until then, be back with you on Tuesday. And in the meantime, go Guardians, go. Be careful shoveling that snow. And hopefully baseball's on the horizon soon.